When I was about 20 years old, I was able to work in a Christian deaf community in Beirut as a volunteer. And the volunteership meant that I had to work inside the scholarship as a scholar and as an apprentice. And I made photographs, of course, of these deaf children, and I gave it to them as a way to represent themselves. And these deaf children, by the way, became deaf because of the war going on in Beirut, which was a very, very vicious war. It's been going on for many, many years. When I was there was a ceasefire for the first time in many years. I took cityscapes, as I call them. They were photographs of the city being completely devastated, completely broken by shelling and vicious fighting. And these photographs were kept in my archive for at least 25, 30 years almost. So when I was able to go back in 2004, I had come to the point as a photographer where I decided that my work is not about myself, being a photographer, but is more about what these people should gain from my photographs. I took the responsibility of bringing these photographs back to them. But how to do that? That is, of course, always the question. And because I'm also, let's say, working as an artist, not just as a photographer, I decided to print these old photographs from 1977 in a large format, A0, that's very big. And I had a roll of photographs under my arm, and I would walk into the city in 2004, trying to find, of course, the same spots where I had been. And this is what they call the past and the present. This is a relative normal situation for photographers. I had no other clue of doing this. But I did know that I could not go to a regular, let's say, gallery, because there wasn't any. And so these photographs were put on the street, and I made like a street expo. So I would put stones on them, and they would lie around, and of course that would attract attention, because it said these photos were taken in Beirut. It said specifically. And so people came up to me, not unexpected, but what happened was unexpected, that they were completely stunned that their city had one day already been demolished and was in such a bad state in 1977. They didn't know. They were only in the, let's say, in the last 10 years, they had seen how the city had disappeared. There was like a lost memory, and suddenly it all came back to them, because they were looking for people that were able to find these places. And so they did. They found these people. They tried to grab them from the street. Can you tell us, you know, like more older people? And so there was like an interaction, very interesting, where they started to tell to me what had happened. And of course, I did have a recorder. At that time, I was also operational as a filmer. I would always have this recorder with me, so I was recording what they said. And because also I'm a panoramic photographer, I decided that the technique to photograph the new situation would be in a modern style, which is the 2004 panoramic style that I work in. So obviously what happened is usually two people telling to each other a story were asked by me to show the photograph in this panorama picture. And when I got home, I realized that that was just an ethical image. And what it needed was this layer of, let's say, complex memories that these people were telling, of course, on the tape. And so I wrote these interviews on top of the photographs, and this is like the end product, it seems, but it isn't. Because this is about me, I made this, but that's interesting because I'm, let's say, the intermediate. But what I find more interesting is, for instance, that these people really connected up. Like this one, he's a Christian, and this Christian was being thrown out of his city, Damour, by the Palestinians, by his family. So he tells the story about this camp where he was a kid. And actually he lives in this house. It says here, see, I show this arrow. This is still the house where he lives in. He's the only family that still lives in the same house since 1977. And so he tells him, well, I know that your Christian militias threw us out, and I can also tell you what happened. People were killed right in front of my eyes, and they took people and they put them in between two cars, and they tried to demolish them, to try to take them apart. Really, he says, well, I'm from Damour, it's a Christian village, and your ancestors, your family, when they got thrown out, they were so angry that they demolished Damour. And what happened is, I only remember the last day, my sister was sitting on a dead body. She was crying and all the houses were burning. Anyway, he had the same experience, but from another perspective. They didn't know about each other. They hardly knew the story. And they decided that they wanted to make an archive with the photographs that I had taken from this camp, which were many. I have many. And I decided to hand them over. And so they started let's say, a remembrance archive, the two of them. And now, of course, the question is, how did it work out? And I don't know yet, so I should take my responsibility and try to find out, and that would be the next step. What I'm trying to propagate from here is that photographers cause a lot of things that they are not aware of, and maybe the work not ends here, but starts there. It starts, let's say, in the new position that I have put people into. Because photographers intervene, and we all know that, but they intervene even more than I thought. It is like a social aspect that we are not aware of, and it's called, by the way, social design. And after this shoot, I came back in the Netherlands, and I realized that a lot of artists and photographers should be made aware of this possibility in a much, let's say, deeper way. And a master was created by me and others, and it's called No Academy. And it enables people like young artists to put their work into practice in real society. So instead of staying on the outside, instead of being theorizing as I am now, they really are doing the work on the streets with the people, and try to bring the work further than just themselves. And I don't say this against photography or photographers, but I'm just saying there is a potential that we have not used enough. And there's of course photographers who do that, but I'm talking about maybe that's what photography can be about more.